money, everything's gone. Okay? And that's essentially what Adam and Eve did to God in the Garden of Eden, you see. Because God had these great plans, you know. He wanted to have Adam be fruitful, multiply, and produce children, and hey, everybody was going to be happy and live joyfully, and, you know, it was going to be wonderful. Okay? And here, this Adam comes along and totally destroys God's creation. And God gave us a sign of it because he cursed the whole creation. You know? And all those things that we read about in Genesis. All right? So that's how angry God was. And she's angry at you, Harold, because of what you did to her, you see. All right? Now, Harold, you know, he doesn't know what to do. Okay? So he comes to me, Bob. I've been his friend for a long time. And he said, what's your first name?
Beth.
Beth. He says, Bob, you know, I did this to Beth a long time ago, and I want to get in her good graces. I want her to forgive me. I want to restore what I destroyed, blah, blah, blah. Could you talk to her? You're a good friend of her. You've known her for years. Could you talk to her for me and possibly open up a pathway that I could have a pathway of forgiveness with her? The grace, have some kind of grace. Okay? Now, I come to you, Beth, and I say, you know, Harold talked to me, and you know, I know he really did some terrible things, blah, blah, blah. Can you possibly open up a pathway where you can talk to you and forgive? Now, what are you going to say to me, your friend? Because I'm talking to you on his behalf, okay?
Why didn't you come directly to me?
Well, he's scared to come to you, okay? He doesn't feel like he has a pathway. The only pathway he feels like he has is with me.
Right.
You see, I'm his intercessor. Okay?
What are you going to do to make up for this?
Well, we'll figure that out. All we want to do right now is to figure out, are you willing to even talk about it? Okay, she says yes, Harold. Okay? All right, so what I just did was I appeased her wrath because I'm friends with her. Okay? If you had come to her, she probably would have told you to go away. All right? I come to her as her friend of 30 years, and I tell her, she accepts it because it's me telling her. She trusts me. She knows that I know you. She knows that you're serious about wanting forgiveness. So at least we have some kind of opening, you see. Well, that's essentially what happened with God and us, with Jesus as the intercessor. Okay? The crime we committed against God was so heinous, just like Beth had happened to her, and even worse. But the only way God is going to even open up a pathway to even talk to us is if there is an intercessor that makes it possible, you see. And that's what Jesus did. He was the intercessor to open up the lines of communication, as it were, between God and man. All right? Because the Father loved the Son loved the Father. Now there's another ingredient here that we need to add. It's not just the fact that God wants to, that we have to open up a line of communication with God again. It's also that God is a God of honor. God is a God of holiness. And when we sin against God, we dishonor Him. Okay? Does anybody have a, well, we sometimes don't know what the word honor means in our American society because we lost a lot of it. But let me give you an example of what honor is. In China, when businessmen sit down at a table, and let's say the CEO of the business happens to fall off his chair in front of all these executives. Okay, now he's embarrassed, right? Okay, well, you know what those executives will do to make him feel better? They will fall off their chairs. Yeah. Okay. They do that in China. All right. Because they had a long history of honor in China. Okay. We're a very young nation. You know, we haven't quite grasped that yet, but they do that in those Far Eastern countries. Okay. Well, that's what honor is. Okay. And when we sinned against God and we made Him look like the devil, and we made the devil look like God, well, what do you think that did to God's honor? Yeah. It just totally ripped it apart. Not that God lost it in Himself, no. But that's what we made Him look like in our eyes, you see. He lost His honor. So what is going to happen for us to restore that respect that we have to give to God because of his honor, well, there's going to have to be a tremendous sacrifice. Something tremendous has to be done to convince God that, yes, we do recognize him as the honorable being that he is. That he's not the devil, that he didn't lie to us in the Garden of Eden, that he is an honorable, omniscient, omnipotent, loving, totally perfect being that we said was not a perfect being in the Garden of Eden, you see. All right? So we have to do something tremendous. Now, can one of us do that? No, because what do we already learn about coming to God? You have to be what to come to God? Holy. Yeah, you have to be holy. You can't have any sin. So if one of us tried to appease God and make up or be an intercessor and try to open up a pathway and try to restore God's honor in some way, we can never do it, you see, because we're sinful ourselves. All right? So the only way that it could be done is for one of the Trinity to say, yes, I'll volunteer to become a man in order to act as the intercessor, to restore your honor, my Father, and to open up a pathway between God and man. You see. He volunteered. That's what John 10:18 tells us. He says, no one makes me lay down my life. I do it of my own will, he says. Totally voluntary. The Father didn't say to Jesus, you know, Jesus, you must do this. You know, Jesus could have declined. Jesus could have said, hey, you know, I really don't want to spend the rest of eternity as a God-man. I quite enjoy the fact that I'm God, and I'm not going to be hampered by a human body. You know, a lot of times we forget that. We forget that Jesus now in heaven is a human being and God. He didn't sort of just lay aside his flesh and go to heaven and become God again. He's a human being in God, just like the Blessed Virgin Mary. Okay? Now what form that is, I don't know, but he's still a human being. Okay? And he's going to be that way for the rest of eternity. Okay? So that was a great sacrifice for him to volunteer to say, yeah, I love you so much, Father, I love mankind so much that I will volunteer to do this intercessory work that's required to restore your honor. Okay? But he didn't have to do it. If he declined, God would say, okay, that's fine, that's your choice. You have the right to make that choice. And what would have happened was, yeah, the whole human race would have been condemned in sin. And that would have been it. And the Trinity would have gone on as it has gone on for all eternity. Okay? With no change. They could have done that. See, and that's what makes us appreciate our salvation that much more, because they weren't required to do it. But see, the one thing about love is that love never refuses. It has the right to refuse, but it never refuses. Love, nothing can make love act by force of law. But love will never turn down an opportunity to do something good, because it's love. You say, that's what love's all about. It will never turn down the opportunity to do something for someone else. And so, Jesus, being all love, wouldn't turn down the opportunity to express his love for us and his Father in such a tremendous way. You see. How wonderful for us. Now, that means that when Jesus died on the cross, that death that he underwent was for the very purpose of appeasing the wrath of the Father, just like I appeased your wrath by coming to you for Harold's sake, because I'm your friend and you trust me, you see. Your wrath was appeased. And also restoring your honor, as Jesus would do for us, restore the honor of the Father. Because look, she lost everything. And she's looked upon as you know, a vagrant in her neighborhood because she doesn't have anything anymore. She's a skid row as far as